Visible Thread webinar. My name is Micheál McGrath. I'm the VP of Marketing here at Visible Thread. So delighted to welcome everybody to this webinar. A little bit of housekeeping before we start. We have a Q&A box on screen. So it's right underneath the speakers. We have some great speakers here today to have a really positive discussion. We want loads of questions from the audience. So we're happy to take questions as we go. More than happy to stop in the middle of the presentation and answer a few questions if there's any urgent kind of topics that we want us to cover. And we also have an attendee chat. So if you want to get involved in the audience, if you want to tell us your New Year's resolutions, or if you want to tell us where you're from or anything at all, that's a great place to interact with the audience. We literally have hundreds of people joining the stream, and we're so happy to bring everybody in. So we have a super panel today. We have Fergal, Marcia, and Steve. How are you all today?
Well,
Great.
you?
Great, thanks.
Very good. Thank you all for joining, and this is going to be a great discussion. A little bit of housekeeping before I kind of move through it. This is actually, I think, our 56th live event this year for Visible Thread, which is just a mammoth amount of taught leadership, product knowledge, everything from industry trends, etc. We've had Marcia on before and Steve on before, and Fergal has done lots of different sessions. But we've also had contributors from around the world, all different practices throughout the year, and it is just a huge body of knowledge. All is available on our website. So if you're looking for something over the Christmas break and you want to dig into some thought leadership or anything like that, it's all available to you. But there is a huge amount of content there for your teams, and do get involved. And the train won't stop next year. And it is very much a thank you to our community that we're doing so much of this kind of thought leadership. We wouldn't run as many webinars and events if we didn't literally have the thousands of people signing up every single month for these things. So our next event, our upcoming kind of big live event that's coming, is Optimize 24 AI, which is our 4th version of this virtual event. It's a full day virtual event focusing in on the huge topic that is AI in this industry. And we're bringing speakers from all different practices to really demystify the conversation. There's a lot of talk about AI at the moment. I'm sure it'll come up in this webinar at some point. It was a big talking point at VT Summit. And we're using this conference as a place for people to go to really get all different points of view on that topic, and really have somewhere that's open source, free, so they can kind of get to grips with what's going on AI and proposal management. So feel free to register. All those assets are in the console below, and we'd love you to see you there at those as well. So feel free to download and sign up. So without further ado, I'm going to kind of move into the speaker section. So we have a fantastic panel here today. We have Marcia Watson. Marcia, how are you today? And would you like to give us a little overview of yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm doing fantastic. As of this month, I represent a new organization. BTW and Company is a firm that I created with a former colleague and a former colleague of hers, Teresa Thomas and Maggie Bullard. Both of us all three of us are really looking forward to continuing to advance business development and proposal best practices in small business. Coming out of 10 years working for a growing large tribal 8A, learned a lot, and I'm very excited for our opportunities to share that knowledge, and all of the opportunities that we get to share our excitement with Visible Thread just makes me have a great day. So I'm so excited to be here, Micheál.
Yeah. Thank you so much. That's hugely exciting, Marcia, and you know how supportive we are of you and what you guys are doing over there. So huge undertaking. And moving over to Steve. Steve, how are you today?
I'm doing well, Micheál. How are you?
Very good. Would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm the capture director at Chickasaw Nation Industries. I've been here about 3 years now. Prior to that, I worked at a number of larges and smalls kind of across the industry, mostly in defense and IT. I've recently been elected to the APMP International Board. So for those of you who are APMP members, you'll probably see my face more and more over the next couple of years. I've been doing proposals and capture for about 14 years, and I'm excited to have this conversation with everybody here.
Thank you, Steve. And last but not least, Fergal. Fergal from Visible Thread. How are you?
Great, thanks, Michal. I think it's very much least as opposed to last and least. Anyway, there you go. So I'm the kind of phony in the room, but actually in seriousness, whilst I don't spend all my waking hours fulfilling proposals, I have huge empathy and sympathy for those who have to do it, including people like Marcia and Steve and everybody else who's on this call. My backstory: I started Visible Thread actually 15 years ago. It's a scary thing. And Marcia, best of luck on your new endeavor. I've gone that journey. It can be tough, but it can be hugely rewarding. I first bumped into APNP actually in 2011 in Denver at the annual conference, in fact, and that's where I met Rick Harris, and that's where I kind of started this journey of, really close collaboration with those of you who are out there creating proposals under huge time pressure. And we, of course, as you probably know, provide software that actually hopefully automates not the thoughtful bits, but the tedious, awful bits that really, automation is really good at doing. Lately, I've found myself talking an awful lot about AI. So I hope I don't bore people, but I'm on a mission and have been for the last 3-4 months to demystify AI, because I think there's an awful lot of apprehension and misunderstanding and so forth about what it is and what it is not. Having had AI and Visible Thread products for the last 10 years, which we have, and we've got different models, it's used for certain jobs. And really, I'd love to help people understand what jobs it's good for and what jobs it's not so good for, and when you need to use different approaches. So that's me. And back to you, Michal.
Thank you so much. So now we have a really good understanding of the panel that we have in place. We have, obviously, Steve from a capture perspective, Marcia from a proposal perspective, Fergal from a technology perspective. There's lots of different angles we could take on this webinar. We are open to the audience here. So we do have a format and questions on our own, but please do use the Q&A box throughout the conversation and we will bring you in. But just to start us off, we just want to get an understanding of where you would like us to focus. So we have kind of 4 main sections of this webinar. This is kind of our agenda. We're going to look at reflections from 2023. We're going to look at best practices learned this year, future trends and personal development. This is actually a poll. You can select directly on the slides. You can actually click. So which topic are you most interested in? And we'll bring up the results, and that might help us lead this conversation as we kind of go forward. So I'll wait for a little bit of time for people to kind of select. Thank you. There's votes are coming in, so you can click directly on the slides. That's great. We're at about 25%. Yeah, we'll go now and move over. So, okay. So mainly focusing on future trends into kind of, okay, fair enough. Forget 2023. It's over now. What are we doing in the future? That's what we want to do. We want to forget about that. So we won't focus too much on what we've learned, but we'll think about the future. But that's a great starting point. And even just to start off the conversation, okay, we'll start a little bit on the negative, but which of these is your organization's most common mistake in 2023? Is it early stakeholder engagement? Is it regular training sessions for new software? Is it having a diverse team? Or is it proofreading? These are some of the topics that have come up on Visible Thread webinars over the couple of months that we've done. We've done a lot on business writing. We've done a lot on like how to train teams. We've done a lot on like how to communicate with different stakeholders. So this is an interesting question just to kind of get people's topics on. So feel free to click. And while we're doing that, I'm going to move directly to Marcia. And Marcia, I think let's start off on kind of where do you see mistakes happening at the moment? Like a lot of people are coming to you in your new organization looking for support. Where do you find the most common mistakes that are happening?
And it's funny, Michal, because we joked about it a little bit before we came live. I think a lot of folks just feel the pressure of continual bidding, and that if proposals aren't going out, contracts aren't coming in. I think that's a little bit of a misappropriation of time, in the sense that, you know, if we're spending more time developing individual opportunities and focusing, then we really don't have to produce as much quantity, because we're producing better quality. And so I'm really focused in 2024 on changing some of those habits and some of those things that we just felt we needed to continue to do in this industry, and driving to new thought processes behind why we do what we do. There's a great revolution taking place inside the proposal industry. The federal government of the United States hasn't caught up to it yet, but we're going to figure out how to get this game played a little bit more streamlined.
Very good. And then the same question to you, Steve. Do you see common challenges faced in 2023 that you think might be an issue in 2024, or any learnings from your perspective?
Sure, and I'm not sure that they're new to 2023. I think that I've seen them my whole career. It's just like Marcia said, more is not always better. We can go the Walmart route, right, and do volume, and not worry about as much the quality, and just, you know, see what sticks and get it by virtue of having thrown a lot of stuff at the wall. Or we can target strategic opportunities and dedicate our resources to that, and really increase our actual P-win, which is, I know, this amorphous number that people love to throw around, but there is, you know, an intangible aspect to it, but there's a tangible aspect to it as well. And increasing the probability of win is at the end of the day, for the large opportunities, really your best bet to get things through the door and contracts signed. So, and that starts with qualification, really.
Great answer. And we have people in the chat congratulating Marcia and Steve for recent achievements. So that's all good. That's all great. Great to see the community kind of getting involved together. Fergal, from your perspective, there is a challenge. We're going to talk a lot about AI towards the latter end of this conversation, but from challenges in regarding embracing kind of technology or new innovation, do you see many challenges out there for teams?
Yeah, no huge surprise. I'm going to say yeah. But equally, I think what Steve just said was interesting. I think Marcia was talking about the same stuff. Nothing has really changed because we're all suspect or subjected to human behavior characteristics. And that sounds a little lofty. Let me explain what I mean. There's a massive human inclination to kind of, in Steve's case, he just cited, you know, more is better, which is not the case. More quality is better. And a considered approach to bidding and choosing, you know, what you're going to kind of focus your attention on and which you're going to equally skip and avoid. In the case of technology adoption, it's the same deal. And really, right now in AI land, it's utterly the case. There's going to be a ton of waste and money spent on AI initiatives that will go nowhere, absolutely zero. Because people are not, you know, it's back to the future. In other words, we've been through these hype cycles multiple times. Java, the coding language in the mid-90s, was a hype cycle. The first browser was a hype cycle. The iPhone was a very real hype cycle that actually justified the vast majority of the hype because it completely changed our behaviors. And AI will be of similar ilk, but there will be an awful lot of waste. So you need to, as you consider adopting technology, just kind of balance it out, do boring old business process stuff. What is the technology going to help me with? And maybe generative AI, which is this latest form of AI, which is only one type of AI, is going to help me, or maybe it won't. But I think that's the mistake. There's too many people saying AI is a silver bullet, it's going to fix everything, it's going to put everybody out of a job. That thankfully has passed. There's a lot more realism. But as you consider technology and automation in general, for any of you on this call, you're trying to win more business, you're trying to do more with less, maybe you don't want to do the extra hire that you had planned, technology can help. But I would urge you to consider what you're trying to automate and then back into your technology, as opposed to just chasing AI and putting in an old chatbot and off you go. That's not going to work.
Great answer. And I must kind of speak about kind of where the poll has gone a little bit. most people have leaned towards getting the importance of having early stakeholder engagement when they're going after a proposal. Marcia, could you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, oh, so important, and again, that's part of that, throwing things over the fence. You might not make it into the right audience. I call that dropping your business card into the Applebee's fishbowl. You never know when you're going to get a call back from that particular client. So really understanding their needs, what that particular opportunity is driving towards, gets you, of course, that better proposal alignment, but doesn't it get you also a better client relationship? And understanding not just what's written on paper in that draft RFP, in that RFI notification, the sources sought, but really understanding what that human needs or what that human's organization needs in order to be more successful in their daily challenges. And so if you can talk to the intrinsic as much as you can talk to the explicit of what's in those solicitations and those documents, you're going to tell a better story of what your solution actually is. But if you're not vetting that, if you're not talking to that client, if you don't know that's what they need, they might not need it. And so you're continuing to look from an internal perspective to an external purchaser. And you've got to really be able to talk to that audience, to that stakeholder. And also not just on the project and program management side inside the government, but the client contracting side as well. They're the ones spending the money. They want to make sure they're getting that return on investment. So it is really important to have client stakeholder engagement early. Again, so you're saving your own resources, but you're building something you know the client wants to purchase.
Love it. Great. And Steve, to kind of finish up and kind of tie a knot in 2023, is there any learnings, any points that maybe we didn't speak about in terms of 2023 that you'd like to kind of close on?
I think one thing that Fergal said was really interesting about making sure that you're using the right tool for the job. I know that when everyone started throwing around generative AI as the silver bullet, as he said, I was in that boat too, right? I think one thing that we've learned is the waste that he was talking about. There are a lot of tools that are basically just front ends for the OpenAI ChatGPT bot, and that doesn't do a whole lot except for line somebody's pockets as a middleman. There's not a lot of added value there, but I think something that people were trying to do, and myself included until I took a step back and realized what and how generative AI works, is they were trying to use it to analyze the wrong kind of data, right? Like, so, and Fergal, you're much more familiar with this than I am, so stop me if I start to go off topic or too wrong here, but generative AI is a probabilistic language model, and it's not going to be something that is going to be able to be used to do predictive analytics on, dollar data and spending, because that's not probabilistic language, right? So to say I want to use, ChatGPT to tell me what the opportunities in the market are as far as like a dollar hole, that's not something that we can use that for. And there are other AI tools that can be used for that, but that's just an example of somewhere that I was looking at USA spending numbers, and I was like, how can I apply generative AI to this? Well, I can't. That's not what generative AI is for. And so getting your leadership to understand that is really going to help every organization going forward in aligning your resources and your tool sets to the appropriate AI investments. And I think that's something that, as we move forward, getting smart on these tools and how they work, not just what they are, is going to help you understand the path forward in 24 and beyond.
I think if I might jump in, Steve, you know what's really interesting? You can actually use these large language models, GPT or whatever it might be. The problem is that you can use them and they will give you a response that will be highly credible, right, which may or may not be correct. And that's the issue, I think, that it's not a kind of a binary question. And sorry if I get off into nerdland here and geekdom, but there is a lot going on in AI land, but I think we're still at the early-ish stages of it. So for instance, to ground your model, to give you more accurate results, to reduce hallucinations, there's a concept called RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation, which you can layer on top of the engine, which is the LLM. So think about the LLM as a raw engine. And RAG has got huge potential. That pattern is very well established. If you want to ground it, let's say you're doing the search use case. Okay, find me all my past performance about X, whatever it might be, cybersecurity or whatever it might be. You can now ground the answers you get from the AI with a RAG interface. And that's all, it's a very standard use case that a lot of people are doing a lot of great work on. But vendors like us, just be careful. And we're no exception. Don't believe what you're hearing from vendors, because what you're going to find is LLMs, the engines, will become commoditized, and the use cases will become fairly clear in 2024. I predict the first half of 2024 is going to be about a very good clarity, particularly at the C-suite, because we've had some chats with executives. Some of our customers are really wide users of our kit. And a ton of our stuff is not AI, and it never will be and never should be AI, because it's inappropriate to use it. Things like, parsing reliably a Word doc, or user management, or workspace management, which are just esoteric areas of our product. And sorry if I'm dovetailing into, I don't mean to be promoting our stuff, but it's really important as you think about tech and automation, that you think about the task that you're trying to achieve automation for, and to actually look at it with that lens. There are a lot of people doing open-ended research projects, and there will be a lot of correct money spent on that. But everybody on this call, I don't think you have the latitude or the balance sheet to afford a kind of an open-ended IT project with a bunch of geeks running around the place creating stuff. It's not necessarily going to do you a lot of, give you a lot of return, I guess. That's a subjective view, by the way.
It's a good point. And we're doing a lot of kind of outside research in prep for Optimize AI in the new year. And even looking at McKinsey, McKinsey ran a survey in November with enterprise leaders, and 76% of enterprise leaders, their biggest concern is misinformation generated by AI technology. So it's that idea of people running with information that might be not as correct as they initially thought it was, thinking it's coming from a factual source, and it's predictive.
And closely followed, Michal, by security, which is a huge question. And it's not that your data necessarily is going to get hacked or misused, but most people in mid to large organizations are operating with a proviso that you cannot use public cloud-based LLMs like ChatGPT or Bard or Bing, because you're dealing with highly sensitive information. So, there's a reason we didn't rush out with generative AI capability. We could have hooked into ChatGPT in 4 weeks. But there's a reason we didn't do that in 2023. It's because we want to make sure our stuff is 100% locked down. So as we announce our plans, and we'll be announcing a major plan or a major announcement in the AI conference in February, you'll be seeing an ability to actually deploy our stuff against your internal LLMs, as well as we will give an ability to have our own LLM, which is 100% locked down. So again, that just keeps everything nice and clean. There's no security concerns. Your information security technology people will not get too freaked out.
I love it. Okay, so let's.
I wanted to just real quick touching base on that, and I think it's the truth in the information, right? And going back to your prior survey of having that diverse proposal team and subject matter experts to validate what is coming in. That is essential. So I was surprised to see that number so low in your survey, because I think the more we lean on these technologies, the more we'll have to lean on ourselves to validate the accuracy.
Yeah, I think you know what, Marcia, the great news here is that the myth that was going around the place, there was a great trope, we're all out of a job. I mean, we had somebody on a webinar that we hosted. And Michal, you'll remember the particular individual who said, shit, I'm out of a job. I'm a writer. I'm gone. I'm dead. That is so not the case. What it's going to do is it's going to make your proofing faster. It's going to make your editing cycles way faster. It's going to make your attempt to get single tone of voice across disparate writers with, techie guys who can't write for nuts. It'll make your job so much easier to rewrite that stuff. That's what it's going to do. It's going to be the create, the edit, the find use cases. It's not going to be the analytics use cases, to Steve's earlier point. Do me something that is 100% reliable 100% of the time. AI is not that technology. It's based on probabilities. I think there's too many people who still don't get that. It is a likely result as opposed to an absolute result, and you have to verify everything that comes back.
Yeah, And I like to say that it can provide you a starting point. It can overcome the tyranny of the blank page. It can give you an 80%
It's brilliant at that.
or 70%, but you have to be the last mile. You have to be the last 20 to 30%.
100%.
And the counter argument, and in different industries and different roles, the option of creating more jobs is the case. Like we were scanning lots of different proposal manager, proposal writer job offers at the moment. Most of them include some sort of reference to AI in terms of you need to have this skill set. Or I saw the first time this week, I saw AI in the job title itself with proposal management. That stuff is starting to build a little bit and build a bit of traction.
Well, that's AI washing. That's what that is. It's a lot of BS going on there. I mean, come on. 1 year ago, we had, how many ML engineers did you have out there? How many AI specialists? It was a niche pursuit, right? Nobody really knew what it was, and I would wager they still don't know what it was. Suddenly, we now have resumes with freaking AI up the yazoo. Come on.
Yeah.
It's nuts. It's nuts.
Very good. Very good. Well, look, let's shifting a little bit into.
Sorry, guys, Marcia and Steve, over to you. I'm going to shut up now at this point. Doing too much talking.
We've loads of time. But looking into kind of next year, is there any impact, Marcia? Maybe I'm asking a poll here, a question, just to try and understand in 2023, what was the biggest impact for proposal managers, proposal professionals out there? And outside of AI, has there been anything that you've discovered, Marcia, that's kind of brought you to a new level, or you thought was interesting over the course of the year?
It's that item C, if I can plug a vote, right? Adaptive and flexible. It doesn't even matter in the proposal strategy. Adaptive and flexible. This world moves entirely too fast. Ironically, in proposals, sometimes it doesn't move at all. And that is because a lot of our government customers are dealing with these fast-paced changes in technology as well. So they've got to update their RFPs to incorporate these new changes in technology, or to incorporate clauses that allow or prevent the use of this technology. From what I understand, NASA suit might not allow AI. AI wasn't even a concept a year ago, as Fergal says, and now it's a handicap if we can't actually use it. But we still have to be flexible and adaptive to get around it. How do we get around it? We go back to doing it the old way, and so those ways still have to be good. They still have to be brought up to the modern technology speed, but we still have to have the fundamentals in place at all times. That may be a Shipley process for your organization. It may be adaptive, tailored Shipley process, or it may be something just that fits for you. And that is something that I think a lot of individuals inside of companies need to understand. There's a rule book, there's things that we must do, but there's always that opportunity to be adaptive and flexible.
Now, talk about watching the audience now. You're after right. Not sure it was a 61% when you started the conversation, but it's 61% now. So look, I think
it's called leading the witness, Neil.
A little bit, but that's okay. I mean, everything else is true. You do need all of those things, but again, training and development, you're going to hear that from me 100 times, but it all comes together, right? I mean, you have to train and learn to be adaptive and agile. That's a new concept. Agile proposal management. I thought that was going to be the trend this year before AI really took over. Yeah. So we haven't gotten.
I think, Marcia, aren't you getting into that's the this is not specific to proposal management. This is specific to any process, right? Where, we have color team review stages and we get past one gate, we get to the next step and gate. And whether you're using Shipley modified or Shipley or Lofeld or whatever it might be, doesn't really matter. It's still, I think what you're espousing is the idea of, don't be so brittle that you have to do this rigorous set of steps before you do the next rigorous set of steps. And that's the core of the original inception of Agile, which came out of the software world, which again, I was, back in the day, very heavily involved with some of that stuff. But that's human behavior. And I think that's a hard thing to expect. I mean, we would all like to think we're, reasonably able in our jobs and whatnot, but the bell curve of human ability kicks in there. And how do you get people who are maybe less able to be so agile to become more agile? That's a real hard nut to crack. When I think about my own business, if you have somebody in a role where basically they're fundamentally almost stressed out by the change and the speed of change, that person is not going to either survive, or if they do stay in the organization, they've got to move into a different role, which is more comfortable for their disposition. I just wonder if that's just the human nature thing. How do we get around people who are fundamentally stuck in having to follow rules and move them into a more agile perspective?
Yeah, well, I personally can testify to that real quick, because I lost all my tools, when I changed careers and then came into, starting my own business and trying to wonder where to start. What tools do I need first to be able to support our clients? There's hundreds of tools out there. I know which ones are high on my list, but, how do I know that my clients are going to understand the purpose of those tools and what those tools mean to them? So that's part of it, is understanding what you have at your disposal and how to use it before you determine you need a different technology. A lot of what we already have either has these mechanisms in place or will quickly update to incorporate them. So going out and buying a whole new suite of tools is not going to be a wise investment. I'm sure we're going to see a crash, not to the scale of, but not unsimilar to the .coms of just these new organizations and companies coming in with new technology. They're going to get into a saturated market. And, that sustainability then creates folks who know how to use these tools that might become obsolete or, run out of business. And then they've got a specific skill set to a generic capability. And so we've got to maintain that flexibility and adaptability of what we learn from these tools and how to use them if those tools aren't available.
Yeah, and to that note, and to Fergal's note on the agile proposal development, I think what makes more sense for us as an organization or as a community going forward is really look at less tools and more process, right? Don't build your process around the tool set. Build your tool set around your process. Make your process more agile. Give yourself the ability to do rolling reviews, and give yourself the ability to do, in the past, it was pens down, don't write, red team's over, start writing again. That's not going to always be the ability that we have as the government puts out these shorter and shorter time frame proposals, right? A lot of times you're not going to be able to get a pink, red, and gold in. Oftentimes it's 2 reviews. Oftentimes they're in process. A lot of times it's collaborative. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to do it. And being able to do that tool set agnostic, I think, is critical. And Fergal, your question, how do we get people to break away from these rules? I think we have to teach them by doing. I think it has to be, there's no training that's going to show them the benefits of it. You just have to say, look, come along with me. We're going to do it. You're going to see it's going to work. Buckle in. It's easier said than done with a lot of executives, but I think it's doable. Buckle
in could be a good tagline for 2024. It could be.
Buckle up.
Yeah, that's what I feel. But getting into a little bit of a different topic, but coming into a little bit of risk management. Has anything changed, or is there anything in regards to risk management, Martha, that you see coming in the next year?
I haven't even really gotten to give that much thought. I mean, there's a lot of things that are going to create risk in what we do. I think, being able to get in touch with clients, we're still very virtual in a lot of what we do. So the old school sitting down, having a handshake and sharing a coffee across the desk isn't necessarily how we're going to continue to be able to communicate with our customers. So we have to find new ways of doing that. The risk that comes in that is, we still might not be able to access them. So how do we learn in another way? So we have to look at those things that technology is changing on our behalf, but it's also creating a new way of going about things that we might not have considered all of the avenues. And so, there's always that air of caution. There's a late adopter notion of, let's see how this plays out before I dive in, because I can't afford to take that risk. What does that do but take you behind the curve a little bit? So there is a benefit analysis that needs to take place with adapting in this world. Is the cost of that adaptation going to get what you need, or is it going to put you on a different path that you didn't know you needed to be on and create a different level of investment inside your organization. So looking at it from that perspective, I think skill sets and training is still going to be a huge risk going forward in 2024. Again, keeping up with all of these technology changes. I know a lot of folks, when they're sitting inside a busy proposal shop, they're not getting the exposure to all of the advances that are taking place. So that's creating a risk in and of itself. Even in the consulting world, we'll have a lot of exposure to different tools, technologies, process improvements and such. But again, it's a matter of still being able to stay eyes up, looking at the horizon for what's coming next.
Very good. And Steve, same question?
I'm sorry, can you just repeat the top level question?
In regard risk management, do you see anything new coming up in the future or any learnings for the audience?
Being able to identify the risks is going to be critical, because I think what we're going to see is a lot of things that we haven't seen before with the increased agility and the increased AI. So I think the key to mitigate them and manage them is just going to be identifying them. And I think that goes back to one of your earlier poll questions about having a diversity of viewpoint. And that's diversity of experience, diversity in all ways. Being able to bring in these different perspectives to identify these risks is going to be critical. I'm going to look at something differently as a capture person than proposals is, than ops is, than finance is. So leveraging your total team to identify these risks is, I think, really going to be really critical going forward, because I think otherwise we're going to miss something. And you're going to look back in 6 months and say, why didn't we see this? Well, we didn't ask the right people.
Very good. Fergal, from an AI perspective or technology perspective, any support you give the audience in regard monitoring that risk or being aware?
Yeah, so again, we speak from the perspective of automating as much as you can automate these review cycles. So I think, to Steve's point, early intervention, collaboration with the various stakeholders, with the various hats that they wear. So compliance people, legal people, ops people, delivery people, engineering, all those various stakeholders. Getting in our world, when we, why do customers buy VT docs? It's a lot of times to actually shred the doc very fast, but not shred it with a view to actually create a compliance matrix. It often is, but it's actually shredded with a view to putting a column against each stakeholder. So, for instance, a column against the legal people, a column against the eng or the ops, a column against compliance, pricing, all the various stakeholders. Ripping your shred out in a couple of seconds or a couple of minutes, sharing that spreadsheet with the various stakeholders, getting their feedback much quicker than would have been possible manually. Still addressing the fact that it's fundamentally, human challenges. People are not going to change, so flicking them over a spreadsheet is much more doable than having some kind of automated workflow system where it gets a little bit brittle. I need to sign off my stuff and then you need to sign off yours. That often breaks down very quickly. But the early intervention, I think the way you can empower that is using technology, be it our stuff or somebody else's product, doesn't really matter, but getting that early feedback loop faster with the various stakeholders that you need to get the feedback from will definitely help mitigate that risk. So all I can speak towards is the part that automation can help in that. It's not going to think for you. Anybody that suggests that it's going to think for you, it's like there are certain vendors out there saying, hey, we'll rip you a response, a close to final response just by throwing an LLM at something. And again, I'm not bashing LLMs. They're brilliant at certain use cases, but that's a very naive value proposition, in my opinion. It just doesn't work in real life. Technology is kind of dumb. Even LLMs are kind of dumb. They are all based on the corpus they're trained on. It's the model they're trained on. You throw in a little bit of RAG and augmentation with your proprietary data, great, it gets better. But you as a human being need to make the call. And the more people are involved earlier in the cycle, the better the outcome will be. Or equally, the better and the faster you get to no bid, freeing up your time to bid. So if you inject technology early in the cycle up in the capture side, as much as you can avert waste and time wasting, and money, of course.
Very good.
And I wanted to touch on Brian's comment in the chat of, the short fuses are a problem. 7-day task orders, they're a thing. They're common. They're going to get faster. General, what we used to see in a 20 to 50 page proposal with a 30-day turnaround. Now you're lucky to get 10, 12, 15 work days out of that. Work days, not calendar days. Those short fuse requirements only mean we have to be better earlier. It doesn't mean we're going to do less work. We have to do the same amount of work. We just have less time after that RFP comes out. On task order vehicles, you don't even know that thing is coming. So you really do have to have something packaged, ready to go, templatized, but that doesn't mean it's format. It doesn't mean it's locked in and we're just mad-libbing the proposal, as I like to say. We have to put that human intelligence in there. And if that's what's going to take the time, then definitely take advantage of the technology tools that get you there faster.
Brilliant. And even to summarize that whole section, understanding the teams that we're working in, the environments, whether it's virtual, how we communicate well, how we work with others, how we bring executives into the conversation in an efficient way, understanding how to pull out requirements, understanding how to find risk and search for terms quickly, and understanding that tools are there, but they're there at an early part of the stages, and they're there as an opening to a really positive discussion and can really speed you up or set you up in a good way. But you always have to be prepared to have that manual support in your process. Marsha, I might go to you first, and just to kind of recap this, finish this section. If there was one element or strategy or process that you would recommend to organizations out there for 2024, what would it be? If there's one thing they should focus on, what would that be?
Capture.
Yeah.
It's, that's the step that gets skipped, or at least sped through. And I always say you have to do capture no matter what, whether that RFP is dropped, you're going to eat up your RFP time doing that intelligence gathering. So, take time, get into your CRMs, build tools, build checklists, build, compliance requirements, of course, but you have to get the details. You have to get the understanding of the requirements, not just what's locked in, but again, what's intrinsic, and really spending that time that's freed up with AI to do additional research on your customers.
Very good. Steve, same question. If there was one thing that you could push the audience to look at from an organizational perspective, what would it be?
So I would agree with Marsha on capture, but I would drill it down one more level to opportunity qualification. You can look at opportunities all day and see big dollar values and just say, I want to bid this. It's $100 million. Well, it came out 2 days ago and it's been forecasted for 18 months and we don't have anything with the customer. Well, we can write a proposal. Sure, anyone can write a proposal. Why are we going to waste our time and internal resources on something that we have no chance of winning with no customer intelligence? Making the smart no bid decision is, I think, one of the most important things that we can do as an industry, because not only does it impact our day, but it makes it easier for our customers. I would rather put a good bid in with a customer that doesn't know me than a bad bid in with one that does, because that's only going to impact our reputation going forward. If you ever want to bid with this agency again, and the first thing that you do is put in this, pardon my language, half-assed bid, like what have you done except damage your reputation? And the next time they see, Bob's Consulting Incorporated pop across the screen, they're going to go, oh, those are the guys that put in that awful thing for that last one. So making the decision not to chase something is almost more important in my mind than making the decision to chase something. And so spending that time, like Marsha said, in your CRM, developing those checklists, there are ways to make it part of your process to quickly identify the go, no-go decisions that can really impact your bid.
Very good. Moving into looking forward into next year and talking a little bit about skills for individuals. Is there any specific skill, and I'm asking the audience separately, Marsha, from your perspective, is there anywhere you think proposal managers, capture managers should be focusing their learning, their development in the next 12 months?
Well, I don't want to get accused of feeding the audience again, but
But you're going to do it, aren't you?
Yeah.
well, you asked me my opinion, so I'm going to give it. I think, I'm going to say work-life balance. Is Rebecca Link on the call? I think that a lot of what proposal managers need to focus on is themselves. What do they need to do to fill their own personal and professional gaps? What do they need to do to feel better about their level of professional capabilities? How do they advocate for themselves inside of their own organization? And being able to accomplish what is needed to be accomplished in every single day just by being efficient isn't going to get you there. Being wise, understanding the why of why we do our jobs. Steve just said anybody can write a proposal. I guess, but being able to do a proposal well as a skill, as a profession, and not just as a job.
Great answer. Steve, your chance to lead the audience, your chance to sway it a different way if you think.
Just to clarify, Marcia, I wasn't saying anybody can write a proposal. I meant any company can put something together. Not anybody. This is a select skilled group.
Exactly.
Of the four choices here, I think, and this is, I think, Marcia, where you were going, strong emotional intelligence and leadership abilities. I've never left a company because I didn't like their quarterly performance. I've left many companies because I didn't like their leadership and how my organization was being run. And I've gone to companies because of how the organization is run and the culture. And it's an intangible, and it's, it's the question that everyone asks in the interview, what's your culture like? Nobody knows how to answer that. My organization right now has a culture that really supports where I am in my life. I've got 2 little girls. I need to be home. I need to be able to say, hey, I'm unavailable from 5 to 7 while I put them down and get them dinner. And I'm in an organization that supports that. So finding leadership with the strong emotional intelligence leadership abilities, I think, is really critical. And if that's a skill that you're developing as a proposal manager, A, you're setting yourself up for future leadership opportunities. And B, you're giving yourself the ability to nurture work-life balance and an understanding of people's needs and how to leverage their abilities within your proposal teams, right? If your SME has, no kids, he's 50, he's just doing this to make money, work him to death if that's what he wants. If your SME is 35 and has got kids at home, be flexible, right? Like, don't schedule a 7 p.m. meeting when you know that your team has commitments outside of work. They got baseball practice, they got whatever. Know your team, understand their needs, and they will work a lot better for you if they're happier.
Great answer. Fergal, from your perspective, any skill set do you think the audience should focus in on next year?
For me, I think it's a skill set that I need to focus on as well, which is basically being a better leader. And I think when you're a proposal manager, you're in a leadership role. You may not think it at times, and sometimes with the fast turn task orders, the 10-day task order turnarounds, you're probably solo on that. But for those proposal managers who are running teams, to Steve's point, if you can know how to work with different people who may have different dispositions and different kind of sometimes eccentricities and sometimes challenges and good bits and bad bits, and not do a one-size-fits-all. I think that's a key element to any leader, myself or anybody else on this call. If you're running teams, you just need to have a read of people. You need to adjust your approach depending on who is on the other side. So Steve's point, I wouldn't necessarily flog the 50-year-old with no family and make them work 70-hour weeks.
Only
but I get
what
the point.
If they volunteer.
Exactly.
If they volunteer.
But if they want to knock themselves out, I mean, I work with a lot of geeks, and no offense to any of my staff, but it's interesting. We're doing a lot of work tech-wise in a lot of other areas, and it is. I mean, the core skill set is the same. It just happens we're a product company and you guys are building proposals, but it's organization. It's reading the room. It's understanding when to actually bypass the rule book. It's all of that stuff. So if you can practice that, and I think it's a practice thing, a certain amount of it is just intuition and kind of native to your character. But the elements that can be practiced, I would encourage everybody to practice this stuff. I'm practicing myself with the help of a wonderful co-leader in our organization, our COO, who's phenomenally great at helping me understand where my rough edges need to be slightly nullified a bit. And that's been a great learning in 2023 and 2024. Maybe I might get a bit better at that. But I think we all need to be humble. We need to understand our good bits and our bad bits and actually evolve.
Yeah, I can't testify enough for Fergal now. I won't go into it.
Oh, shut up.
Exactly. I won't embarrass him on a live recording. But it's funny, a conversation when you look at 2023, when we project and reflect on last year, all the focus on AI, machine learning, what we can automate, what we can't, and then what's the biggest thing we need to focus on next year? Human skills, software skills, better relationship building, understanding our environments better. It's funny how quick we go back to the normal.
It's all people. It's all people.
I love it. And just on that point, Marcia, is there anything, if you were giving advice to newcomers in the industry, like people starting off their careers? You actually had an interesting quote at the summit. Nobody did a degree in proposal management and ended up and focused the start of their career wanting to get into it. Do you have any feedback or advice for people starting their career here?
It's perpetual learning, perpetual. You take a break for 2 months to, leave one job and start another, and you've lost a lot of skills. Just not paying attention, not being close to what is happening on the daily basis, learning from peers, learning from organizations like Visible Thread that share this thought leadership knowledge. I joked the other day, who has time to listen to podcasts? Who has time to read books? I don't, but, I need to personally make that time. I need to invest back in myself in what I'm doing so that I can continue to be good at my job and better at my job than I was last year. So somebody coming in who doesn't really know kind of what they're getting into in the proposal world, it's actually a really good time because the world's changing. We're deconditioning ourselves to be that proposal machine, and we're really allowing ourselves to be proposal experts. And that is a huge change. So understand, coming into this industry, it is a changing industry more so than it has in the last 20 years. And so new folks coming in, new generations coming in, you're bringing an advantage whether you know it or not. So look around, see where your skill sets fall in place, see what you don't know and learn, but teach others, be collaborative. This is a community as much as it is an industry, and take advantage of it.
Very good. Same question to you, Steve. Someone new coming into the industry. Any advice?
So I think Marcia's comment is very good about soft skills, and it's important in the context of everything that we've talked about. When I was looking at these questions before the presentation, I focused a little bit more on hard skills. And something that I've found has been really helpful for me throughout my career is to stay ahead of the tool set. Whatever you're using in the organization that you're at, keep an idea of what they're going to be continuing down the path of. I've tried to keep ahead of SharePoint and its various iterations throughout my career, whether it was part of my job or not, because there is something to be said for being the expert on the tool set, right? Yeah. And as we go down that path, become the expert on the underlying architecture on these LLMs, understand how they work, and you can be much better prepared to use them no matter what format they come to you in, no matter whose flavor wrapper is on top. If you understand how an LLM works and what it can be used for, you're going to present yourself in a much more advantageous light to your organization than if you're niched into one specific tool.
I like it, and that's a really good segue, Fergal, in regards, like you're doing a lot of research and working with the engineering team and product teams on this technology and how it could, and our customers, how it could benefit them. Is there anywhere proposal professionals could look to learn a little bit more? Would you steer people in a certain direction for information?
Yeah, it's I wish there was one spot. There's so much going on right now, like the stuff that I'm following and the stuff that, it's interesting, Marcia, you mentioned the point about podcasts. That's all I'm doing. I'm listening to podcasts in all of my spare time, but it's really interesting to me. There's a lot of stuff out there, quite techie stuff. So, certain people in the audience may get it, certain people won't. it's very difficult to kind of give a single source, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I've tried to, and not to do a shameless plug, but I've tried to kind of do quite a few kind of pieces to camera and kind of thoughts on AI myself on my own LinkedIn profile. So feel free to kind of follow me on that if it's of any use. I hope they're sensible. They are my thoughts, so they may not necessarily be right. But it's really, I've always been interested in the interface between technology and human beings. That's why I build products that are kind of, interface type products. They're productivity solutions to make things that are generally painful much easier and better and faster. And I do see that the LLM stuff, it's going to become commoditized. There will be people in your organizations, and certainly in the large organizations who are tech, who will, uncap the value. I think people shouldn't get so stressed about LLMs and how they're going to impact their life. It'll figure itself out in 2024. Vendors like us will introduce very clear use cases where we're using LLMs to, for instance, create that first draft of a proposal. There are vendors out there that are doing that right now. But don't get too stressed, but equally, to Steve's point, where could you look? I think if you just even Google or ask ChatGPT, explain what generative AI is, you get a pretty decent answer, to be honest. And that's why Google are a little bit worried right now, because their entire search business is potentially under threat of disruption. But whether you buy that or not, but you can ask these LLMs themselves, I'm not familiar with AI. I'm not familiar with generative AI. It's all in the prompt. Give me a two-pager. Make sure it's less than 700 words on the core things that play in LLMs. It will give you a pretty damn good response. And maybe that's your best way to get into it, is actually play with the thing. If you're in an organization though that is banning this stuff and isn't allowing you to get that, obviously go off, do it on your own time at home, off a Gmail account or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I would try these things.
Number one Google search this year: how to log into ChatGPT.
Not surprised.
Mind blowing.
The variety between the LLMs is wild as well. I was involved in a beta for one that was not ChatGPT, and having used both, I could convince the one that I was on the beta for to say some outlandish things. I convinced it at one point to worship me as a god. I mean, it was insane.
And I think, Steve, that's I literally read, sorry for overlaying it, this is hilarious. I saw a tweet, or whatever they're now called with X, but literally earlier today, where some guy had gone onto an auto dealership, like blah, 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 Chevys.
That. Yeah.
Did you see that one? It was amazing.
Yeah.
And he got and it was clearly powered by GPT. He got the thing to actually generate Python code for free, because it was actually GPT-4, and then a bunch of other things. So it's just like you have to, and this is coming back to us in a serious edge to this. That's why we're big on, I mean, again, just to help everybody understand, the number of LLMs out there at the moment is 440,000 LLMs that are in a thing called Hugging Space, which is kind of a repository of a lot of LLMs. 1 month ago, that number was 370,000. Yesterday, it was not the same number. There's been thousands of LLMs coming out on a daily basis. So this LLM thing is very much, you have to be careful what you're using, but don't get too worried about that. It's more, let's assume you're using ChatGPT or something else, which is relatively reputable. You just need to kind of be aware. It's a predictive technology that's based on predicting, based on a massive corpus of information, what the likely next token in a word will be. Fancy way of saying what the next likely word is going to be. So that's all it's doing. It is not thinking. But it's amazing when you think about it from the perspective of potentially being able to diagnose diseases or predictive stuff based on a massive body of knowledge. It's like you go to a doctor and all of a sudden you've got 50,000 doctors at your disposal. That's an amazing potential. So I'm really excited by it. The application of this in terms of gene editing, medical technology, predictive stuff around, ailments and issues that are serious in nature. You can think of all kinds of applications, which is the exciting bit of this. But in our world, honestly, it's creating text, it's editing text, it's refining text predominantly. It's definitely creating imagery, as you think about your volumes and your proposals. But again, you have to be thoughtful about what the imagery is supposed to convey. What's the meaning of what you're trying to communicate? It might be all pretty, but is it actually getting the meaning across?
Very good. Well, we're nearly up to time. I'll go a little bit round robin just at the end. Marcia, any final comments that we haven't spoke about? Anything for the audience?
Yeah, I think the unknown is the unknown, and it's going to stay that way. Just be ready for it, right? Again, nobody knew we were going to be here today this time last year. And so just take that as a lesson, lean in with it with a grain of salt and wait for it to kind of settle in, and then know where you fit and expand upon that.
Very good. Steve, any final parting words?
The part about the AI landscape that is most interesting and terrifying to me, because I am a sci-fi guy and I've watched a lot of Terminator movies. These tools are generating and developing at an astronomical rate. Mm-hmm. The iteration from one version of the next is exponential, and it's only going to continue that way. We're on, I would say, probably the bottom of the slope up, and I think we're going to see in the next 5 years some pretty drastic ways that these AI tools are going to be capable and used. And so just, stay abreast of it and be aware of it and watch the developments as they come and just, stay on top of it.
Very good. Fergal, any final words?
Nothing really above and beyond what Steve and Marcia have said. I can't think of anything insightful. So I'll leave it at that.
You've said enough, Fergal. You've said enough. Well, look, thank you so much, Fergal, Marcia, Steve. Excellent discussion. I think we covered so many different areas, and I know these summaries of the year can always be a little bit jumping from topic to topic. So thank you for divulging me and moving from side to side on different things. It was great, super conversation. Before the audience leave, feel free to fill out our survey on screen. We'd love to know what you think of this webinar, topics for the future, etc. If you want more information about Visible Thread, we've been more than happy to support. But the main focus from my perspective is Optimize AI. This is going to be a huge event in the new year, February 29th on a leap day. It's going to be an excellent conference with a range of speakers. So feel free to sign up, and it's something to look forward to in the next year. And my final words is have a really happy holiday, enjoy the break. And I know this industry is incredibly time pressured, but definitely take the time to spend time with friends and family, and safe travels to all those who are going home. And thank you to Marcia, Steve, and Fergal for today's presentation, and for everybody for joining. And I look forward to seeing you all next year. So thank you all.
Thank you, Michal.
Thanks, Michal.
Thanks, Michal.